There are a few companies out there who sell Xeno RGB sabers. Dupengda from Temu, which I reviewed. Saber Masters now sells their sabers with the same XRGB V3 core. And what you'll notice is if you take it apart, you'll see that there's a spot for a microSD card, but there's nothing installed. Maybe you're wondering what would happen if I put a microSD card in there. Is it worth it? Does anything change? Join me for this tutorial and I'll show you. Greetings to all my Jedi and Sith companions. I'm your host, the Frugal Jedi, and thank you for joining me as we learn about the advanced features of XRGB V3. Adding a microSD card will allow you to add more sound fonts, music, do firmware updates, enable Bluetooth if it's disabled by default, and some companies do. So you'll be able to get a lot of cool stuff. For this tutorial, you will need a microSD card like this. I purchased mine from Amazon. I've already ripped it open and I got 16 gigabytes. As for brand, I recommend SanDisk. I find they're most reliable and they're the best. You can use 32 gigs if you like, but 16 gigs is plenty and that's tons of space. I'll leave that up to you. The last thing you're going to need is a way to read the microSD card on your PC. So I have a USB adapter, and you can get these on Amazon as well. And of course, you need to have a Saber that has that core with the missing SD card. So we have these three things. Let's head over to the PC, and I'll show you what to do first. Okay, so I put my microSD card in the USB adapter, and I'm going to plug it into my USB port. Now the microSD card has been detected, shows up as USB drive F. The letter might be different for you. It just depends on how many drives you have installed on your PC. First thing I want to do is check to see how it's formatted. So I'm going to right click it and choose Properties. And it's formatted in FAT32, and that is what we want. So we can just leave that the way it is. First thing we'll need is to have the config file. And to get the config file, open up your web browser and you want to go to darkwolfsabers.com. And I just did a review on one of their mystery boxes, and I'll put a card up on the screen if you want to watch it, but really good deal for a mystery box, and I'm really tempted to get another one, but that's another story for another day. So for now, we're going to go to Soundboard Support, and we want to choose XENO 3 Pixel A RGB Support. Click on that, and you want to scroll all the way to the bottom, and you'll see XENO 3 Default Settings Files. Click Show More, and click on that Google Drive link. And click Download. Gives me a warning, click Download anyway. And it's finished. So go to my Downloads folder. And we want to extract this. So I right click it, choose Extract All, and click Extract. Now I take my folder, I copy it, and I paste it onto the USB drive. Now I want to go into that folder and scroll down till you find a config file. And it'll have an icon with a cog on it. And the extension is hidden on my PC, but it is config.ini. You want to make sure that it opens up with Notepad. And if it's not opening with Notepad, Then right-click on the file, choose Open with Notepad. I like to make sure that word wrap is turned on so that it'll wrap the words rather than just cutting it off on the end. Okay, so let's have a look at the config, and we want to go down to this line right here. Because this is an RGB saber, we want to change the value to 0. Now, a lot of these options aren't going to have any effect because it is an RGB saber. So main blade length, side blade length, all of this doesn't need to be there. We'll just leave it. Volume. 100 is default, it is at 50. I'm going to leave it at 50 just to see how loud it is, and if I wanted to increase the maximum volume higher, I could set that number higher. Dimming, I don't want it to dim. Flash on clash, leave it, and pretty much leave everything the way it is. You really don't have to touch anything in this list. There is one line that is not in this file, which should be there. So I'm going to put it right underneath this section. And I'm going to spell it correctly here. So the pound sign or the hashtag means that this is just a comment. So this is the Bluetooth switch. Some XRGB sabers come with the Bluetooth disabled, and that's just kind of silly. You want to have Bluetooth turned on. So add a line that looks just like this, and it'll have Bluetooth equals 1. I'm going to save it and close it. Now this next part is where you're going to be adding sound fonts. You're wondering, what about the sound fonts that are pre-installed? Well, when you add a micro SD card to the Saber, it's going to only read files off of the micro SD card, meaning that the sound fonts built in are not going to play. If you want those sound fonts, you're going to have to contact the store, the site where you bought the Saber from, and ask them, is it possible to have those files so that you can put them onto the micro SD card. They might send them to you, or they might not. I honestly don't know. For this tutorial, I'm going to act as if I don't have access to those original files, and I'm just going to put some new sound fonts on. A great place to get free sound fonts as well as paid ones is grayscalefonts.com. If you search around, there are plenty of different websites that offer sound fonts, and they all have something different to offer. So I'm looking at the free sound font section, and I'm going to download just one for now, Mercenary. It's going to ask you what version to download. You can see XENO 3. This will work for the Pixel or RGB, so we'll download that. And we'll go down and download Apocalypse. Again, XENO 3, download. All right, so I need to extract this. Okay, so now they call it XENO 3. We're going to call it number 1, meaning that this will be the first sound font. And you can see all the files in there. I can listen to it.
Mercenary.
Now I'm going to copy it, go to the USB drive, and paste it. And now I'm going to do the same for the second one. I'm just going to rename it 2 for now. Remember, you do have to extract it. You can't just drag the zip file onto your microSD card. So right click, extract all, extract. And again, rename this to number 2. And we can have a quick listen. And copy that to the USB drive. And it's going to look like this. So this is how the layout should look. You should have numbered folders, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, going up, and a setting folder. That is it. Now, if I want to add music, what would I do? First, you need to have access to music files. Whether you get your music from Spotify or Apple, or you're ripping a CD if you're old school, you have to make sure that you convert your MP3 to a WAV file. That's very important. I already have lots of music, so I'm just going to grab a WAV file and put it on to my Soundfonts. So I have 3 track files, and I'm going to drop them into Soundfont 1. So each Soundfont needs to have its own track files, and those are the music files. So you could have different music files for each Soundfont, but I'm going to be lazy and just use the same 3 tracks for both those Soundfonts. And that's it. That's really all you have to do to have the microSD card ready for the Xeno RGB. Now, 2 Soundfonts is pretty weak, but I'll be here a while, and there's no point in you sitting here watching me adding 20 Soundfonts. And just to give you an idea of how much space we've used with 2 Soundfonts, we've only used 254 megabytes. So this tiny little sliver is 2 Soundfonts. So yeah, 16 gigabytes is a lot of space. And before we eject the micro SD card, there is one last step. We want the Saber to update to the latest firmware. So we're going to go back to the Darkwolf Saber website, where we downloaded the default settings file. And we're going to scroll back to the top, and you'll see right here, firmware 1.2.5 for RGB baselit only. We're going to scroll down, click the link, and we'll download that file. Extract. And we want to take this update.bin file, copy it, go to the USB drive, into the setting folder, and paste it. And replace the one that's there, because the one that's there is an old version of the firmware. And that's how we want it. Now we can right click and safely eject the microSD card. And then join me back at the table and let's try it out. Okay, so we're going to place the microSD card into the slot. Close it up. Hold the power button to turn it on, and when I do that, it should automatically start the firmware update.
Beginning update.
And the light will blink really fast, and just wait.
Update successful.
And that's it. So now it's running the latest firmware. After it does the firmware update, firmware, I sound like Elmer Fudd for a second. So after it's done the firmware update, hold down the button to turn it back on.
Power on.
There we go. Now let's listen and see if those sound fonts are installed. Mercenary. And the second one. We'll play the tracks. And there it goes. Man, those are such nice sound fonts. Okay, so now I'm going to connect the Saber to the Xeno Configurator app. So download Xeno Configurator either from Google Play Store or the Apple Store and launch it. Make sure that you have Bluetooth enabled on your phone or tablet if you're using one of those. And I click the blue arrow, connect the Saber. It's going to scan for Sabers that it can find. So it says Saber. I know it's this one because I don't have any other Sabers turned on around me. So I tap on Saber and I choose connect.
App connected.
And it is connected. So again, this is a fantastic app. I've talked about it many times. You can check your battery level. You can select your fonts.
Mercenary.
You can adjust volume.
Volume level 100%. Volume level 52%.
And you can adjust your color. And you can enable and disable motion control. I see that countdown is turned on. So countdown will make a beeping sound when I press the button. But because the button lights up, I don't need to have that turned on. But I'll show you what it sounds like.
Standard mode.
So you can hear that beep, beep, beep. I'll turn that off. And flash on clash, you can turn on and off. You can turn off how long before it powers off or before it goes into deep sleep. So deep sleep, I want to have that shorter. So if I'm not using the Saber within 10 minutes, it'll go to deep sleep so the battery's not getting drained. And at the bottom of this page, you'll see velocity mode, torch mode, ghost mode. Velocity and torch only work with pixel, but you can enable ghost mode. So ghost mode means that the blade will be completely dark, and then as you start to move it, it gets brighter and brighter. So that's enabled. Lightning block mode is only, again, for pixel, so I'll disable that. Multi-block and multi-lock, those are both on, and those do work with RGB, and I'll show you what those do in a minute. This third page is still not ready, so nothing happening there. And that little icon in the bottom right, I can click on the Saber, and it shows me the version of software, and if I tap it, it'll say it's the latest version. Of course, in the future, I'm sure that this will be out of date, and you'll just have to check it once in a while. And you can factory reset, and you can rename the Saber. So I could call this whatever. I can call it Dupengda, like that. Oops. And click Save at the top right. And it's a single button RGB, so you really don't want to touch the button configuration or change it to pixel. It's fine the way it is. I'm going to show you what multi-block mode does, and I've shown this in another video as well. So while the Saber's on, normally to do blaster blocks, you tap the button. If I hold the button down and swing the Saber,
Enter multi-block mode.
you heard that, enter multi-block mode. So now, when I move and stop, it does that block sound effect and the blade will flash. And then to exit multi-block, hold the button
Exit multi-block mode.
and swing.
Power on. Enter multi-lock mode.
So it says enter multi-lock mode. Now anytime I strike the Saber, it'll go right into lockup. And there's lockup again. To exit multi-lockup,
Exit multi-lock mode.
you hold the button down till it blinks once, then let go. So those are the advanced features of Xeno RGB V3. If you did find this tutorial helpful, please don't forget to give this video a like so that the analytics of YouTube can recommend this video to others. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this, and hit that bell to stay up to date. If you do have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them into the comment section, I'll answer you as quickly as I can. Now go out there, put some sound fonts on your Saber, add music, play with the app a little bit, and see what you discover. Sounds so freaking cool. Until next time, I have been your host, the Frugal Jedi. Thank you for watching.